Arguably one of the best lines in hockey makes its way to the main stage on today's episode of Locked On Flames.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I'm your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me as we talk about one of my favorite lines to gush over. And yes, that would be the Mangiapane, Backlund, and Coleman line. But before we do that, make sure you are following and subscribing for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts to get the latest episodes every day. I'm here for you here at Locked On Flames, and just make sure that you're giving us a nice little comment, some ratings, some reviews, anything just to help us. We love to see it, just like we love to see this line out there on the ice. I think we were all in agreement when we said that this was the line. This should have been starting against Connor McDavid's line last playoff. Why were you not putting out your best defensive forwards against like one of the most offensively skilled lines in hockey? I don't know, but we just have to start talking here about Andrew Mangiapane, because again, this is a line that like I could do episodes and episodes about, but I don't want to bore you with that just yet. I want to break down each player and get into it. Andrew Mangiapane is a future Selke nominee and more than likely winner. He was second in forwards and takeaways on the Calgary Flames, and he is someone that I think is going to blossom. And kind of like how Dylan Dubé had his breakout season this year, and yes, Mangiapane technically had his when he scored all those goals, but I think we're going to see a resurgence. I feel like it's still very too early, very much too early in Mangiapane's career to call it a resurgence, but, you know, we're going to see a consistent style of what we saw 2 seasons ago. And we do have to discuss the elephant in the room here, right? Holy drop off in production. I found it very, very odd, mainly because the line that he was on wasn't changing drastically. They played 400 minutes together. It was broken down into, but that, you know, for them to be on the ice together for that long, and I feel like something just wasn't right there. And I understand that, you know, there were days where games and shifts where they weren't always together, but to me, you should still be able to pull something out of yourself, especially when you're as young as Andrew Mangiapane. He's 27 years old. He has the same birthday as one of my family members, like exact birthdays actually. But this was the 14th best line in the league when you looked at it through lines that played 375 minutes together and through like one of the best lines. And I just want to know who hurt them. Why, where did Mangiapane's production go? 17 goals and 26 assists. Was 2 years ago just an outlier? And not just for him, but for the entire group? Was it just luck that all of these things happened and just kind of fell into place and aligned for success here? But what happened? Where did those 12 goals go? Listen, if he even scored 7 more goals, I would have been happy. You're going to see a decrease in production most times, especially in a season where most of your team is struggling. I don't know. And unfortunately, he's kind of the weakest link this season based on this breakdown here. He had 2 power play goals this year versus 8 And he did have so actually he had 2 power play goals in 2020, the 2020-2021 season, 8 power play goals in the 2021-22 season, and then 2 power play goals this year. So, an outlier. The years before he had 0. So he is still young and has so much potential to grow and be a consistent 25 to 30 goal scorer. And I think you will see that again. I think, he did end up having shoulder surgery at the end of the season pretty quickly after. So I'm interested to know when that might have happened. I don't think that he is one of those players that's going to tell you something is wrong, especially like I never expect a player to come forward and say, yeah, like I've been battling through this, when there wasn't like any indication, like obvious indication that something was going on, and especially where they were fighting for a playoff spot up until the last minute. But I think we are going to see a different version of Mangiapane again. He is very much like like a mirror ball where he just kind of reflects off of everything and he's showing you all these different things. And I really have faith in him finding his offensive stride again. Every player goes through down years, and it felt like so much worse because of how many goals he had last season. But coming up next, we are going to talk about the most criminally underrated two-way forward in the league, Mikael Backlund. But before we do that, I do want to take a minute and tell you about Built Bar. Built Bar is a delicious tasting protein bar that everyone needs in their snack drawers. And they are a great protein bar that fills you up and gets you pretty much a serving of protein in one bar. And these bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, and they come in a bajillion different flavors. And they come in flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and cookies and cream. There's a million different ways to consume these too. Some people like to put them in the microwave and then put them over like an ice cream sandwich, ice cream sundae. Some people like to blend them up and put them in their shake. Some people just like to eat them like a candy bar. And right now, the wait is over. You don't have to wait to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering Built Bars at Built.com, which you can still do, by the way. But you can get them at your local Walmart and Sam's Club while you still can. And you can get your specialty flavors at Built.com. So head to your nearest Walmart and walk to the pharmacy section to grab yourself a box of Built Bars. And you can get a box at Sam's Club as well. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed and following Locked On Flames wherever you're getting your podcasts. Another year of Backlund being snubbed for the Selke. And honestly, congratulations to all the nominees. It's not easy getting recognized for these awards on a national scale like this. So maybe next year, right? This past season, he led the team with 60 takeaways, and he said it himself. This was a rough year for the team, but I do want to take a moment and just talk about how crucial Backlund was at both ends of the ice. Obviously, I mentioned the 60 takeaways there, which obviously are fantastic. You know what? That is something that a forward should absolutely be getting praised for, whether it be his coaches, his teammates, the local media. Quite literally, anyone that watches him play should be acknowledging that, right? But his production was up, and it was up significantly. He went from 12 goals to 19, which is a significant jump, especially for a player that is, in his 30s. You don't always see that. And I felt like anytime Backlund was on the ice, again, this could just be the eye test. It could just be me being blindly optimistic. But I felt like Backlund really gave this team a fighting chance in any situation. He was going out there, whether it be on the power play or at even strength, and he was giving it his all. And that's what matters, because you need someone that can still like push it to full throttle, even when you're losing 8-2 to the Los Angeles Kings. It's okay, you know, it stinks that losses like that happen, but I feel like Backlund, anytime he was out on the ice, he was looking to make progress, and he was a force to be reckoned with out there. And you know, obviously he's not a player that's like Matthew Tkachuk in terms of, you know, I'm gonna go out there and fight people and do sexy wraparound goals or anything like that, but he puts his nose to the grindstone and grinds out every shift. He's going out there, he's making complete passes, he is swooping in passes from his teammates, and he's doing the dang thing. I really, really think that he is one of the most poised players in the league. And I know that these players are very well media trained, but with the amount of charity work that he does, and him and his wife do, and how he addresses the media, he is a very polite and kind gentleman, and he knows his audience. He knows the people that he's talking to, and if he has something to say, he's going to say it, but in a way that does not seem overly disrespectful. I want to know what he was doing at the press conference. I want to know what was going through his mind as he listened to the people in the organization talk. What was he doing? I think that if they can get him to sign another few-year extension, he's named captain. He is the longest tenured Calgary Flame. He's played his entire career there, and really, he deserves it. He is someone that will continuously stand up and speak out, and you love to see it. I am concerned with this upcoming season being a contract year, just because sometimes players put too much emphasis on that and they get in their own way and they can't help themselves and they just have a really bad year, or they suddenly find this new level of hockey within themselves. Think of Eric Goodbranson, okay? No way, $16 million contract. Absolutely not. But he got it because he played well going into free agency. He knew that the Flames weren't going to re-sign him at that price, and he got someone to pay him. So, you know, I think that this could be a situation where he does stay, especially now that Sutter's gone, but I think that he will be a commanding voice in the room next season, or this upcoming season. I really enjoy Mikael Backlund and the style of hockey he plays. Want to reiterate that having him on the ice on your team, you know, everyone needs to just watch him closer. Whether you go back and watch a really good game, or you watch highlights, or watch this next season. I want everyone to be paying attention to Backlund. I think he is a star. He is certainly a star. And coming up next, we wrap up the show with some Blake Coleman talk and wrapping up this line as a whole. Thank you, everyone, so much for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. Your team every day. Blake Coleman has settled in to his life in Calgary. He's doing well. He's just a doll, you know. Him, his wife, his 2 kids, just absolutely gorgeous family. And I love watching how, you know, they interact with him on game day up against the glass. I find it very endearing and very sweet. I love that they wear jackets or have jerseys that say daddy on the back with his number. I love that. And, you know, there's no doubt that that man loves his life. And it's really nice to see, because I think, you know, when you're happy outside of work, you're going to bring the positivity to work. And I think Blake Coleman does that. And I think he has done that from day one. You know, he had just come off of winning Stanley Cup and signs with Calgary because they couldn't afford to keep him. They couldn't afford to keep anyone after they won the Stanley Cup, right? So, you know, him coming in led to a lot of hype and kind of expectations. And I don't think that he has failed to meet them. I think that especially this season, he had an increase in production, and you were watching him shoot more, and you were watching him still thrive in as a two-way forward. So for him, he did jump a little bit from 16 to 18 goals, and of course from 17 to 20 assists. He had 32 takeaways on the season, so you're evening out and you're finding a little bit of balance there, right? You are finding what you need to succeed. And again, this line is something that should be cherished, right? Like this is such a good line because of how dynamic they are, how they can go out there and just score at even strength while they're shorthanded or have the man advantage. So you also know that they can perform defensively. Look at all these takeaways, right? His shooting percentage did increase this year as well. It went from 7 to 9%. And I think that you're going to see any player that plays under Daryl Sutter to see an increase in shooting percentage. We have talked about this a lot, especially with Nick on the show. Daryl Sutter's kind of model is shoot, shoot, shoot. You are a shooting team. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be pretty. As long as the puck leaves your stick, you're good. And I don't think that this isn't Blake Coleman. I think that he has a chance to continue doing this because, he was shooting at 10 and 11% from 2018 to 2020 consistently. So 3 years of that is pretty good, and he's climbing his way back up. And you want to see that. I don't have any thoughts or ideas of how he feels about Sutter being gone. I haven't seen anything. Him and his wife are very active on social media. They are always doing something so fun. And I'm jealous of these two little kids getting to travel all over North America to go to Texas Rangers baseball games and just hang out with the coolest people on earth, right? But I think you're going to see more of that production from Blake Coleman again. I think people have been a little hard on him, but I don't think that it's, anything to be overly concerned about. He is a good player. He has what it takes to win, and everyone in that room should look at him, look to him as a leader. I think that this line is going to hold itself to a higher standard next year, and I think that it is going to meet that expectation. If you see all three of these players on an offensive tear, this essentially is going to become your second line. I think that it is just the third line because of how deep their team is. Is their team really that deep? That's another question. But I want to see this team really click, or this line rather. This whole team needs to click, yes. But on a micro level, this team needs to succeed. They need to start clicking. They need to be better at completing the passes, better at shooting, better at playmaking. But everyone is kind of down on themselves this year, and when you have a center that's not in the necessarily strongest mind frame because of how hard he's been on himself, you're going to see some consequences of that. And I don't want to say it's okay, because it's not. You always want people to be okay, but it's going to get better. I hope that the long-term plan is for Backlund to stay in Calgary. I want to see Mangiapane obviously heal and recover from this surgery, because he needs to. And there's no point in playing if you aren't fully recovered, because you are just going to be limiting yourself, and you are going to potentially injure yourself again. And what is the point? And I just want to see Blake Coleman continue to rack up those assists and work on that two-way game. I think that those are very reasonable expectations for this team. especially this line. But thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. As always, I'm your host, Jess Belmosto. You can follow me on Twitter at Jess Belmosto, and you can tune in to Locked On Flames, your team, every day. And I will see you tomorrow as we continue to work our way through player evaluations.